We've enhanced the follow-up email reminder functionality to allow you to not only have email reminders go to you as the current user, but to also be able to send these email reminders to other users either that are on the database, or also allows you to provide a semicolon delimited list of other email addresses as well. So as you know from the notes section, that's where follow-up reminders are set. So if I click the arrow and then click on view, down here in the follow-up section, if I click add, you'll notice that this dialog has changed. Specifically in the email reminder area, this is where we've enhanced that functionality. So if I click on set email reminder and say I want to be reminded on Friday the 16th at 8 a.m., you notice now I've got a list of available users that I can assign this email reminder to, again, or I can specify a semicolon delimited list of emails to send it to. So if I wanted to go to myself as well as say Carlos and George, I just highlight their names and click the right arrow. So now that'll go to Todd, Carlos, and George. But again, I can also specify a list. So if I wanted to go to Hinton at bernardsolutions.com and also Betty at yahoo.com, those individuals will receive the email reminder as well. Once I have my list set and I just simply click save, when the time comes due for this email reminder sent, it'll go out to all 5 of these individuals or email addresses that have been specified. We've added new functionality on the partner record when viewing the partner record, that is, as it relates to being able to get a view of when seasonal addresses are active for a particular partner. So if you notice here, we have the permanent address that's currently showing. If I go into the seasonal address, which is maintained under Manage Addresses, you'll see here if I expand the seasonal address panel, I've got a current seasonal address, but it's not active because we're not within this particular date range. So notice this one says this is active, this Biscayne Boulevard address is active November 1st through March 1st. Let's go and change this just for demonstration purposes to say August 1st through March 1st. If I click Save on this record, what will happen now if I view the donor record again from the main screen, it's no longer the permanent address, we're now showing the seasonal address instead, noted by having the sunshine icon, and then you've got the hyperlinked seasonal address as well. The reason it's hyperlinked is that if I click on this seasonal address, that'll jump me straight into that seasonal address where I can go ahead and edit that again if I would like to. So if I made a mistake and let's say the partner actually says it's November through March, I can simply update the start and the end date right there, or modify the address as needed and simply click Save. Of course, now if I look at the donor record again, by clicking View this partner, or donor in this case, you'll notice I'm back to the permanent address. So a nice way to just get a quick idea of what the current address is for this particular partner. We've added 2 additional fields to the activity summary dialog that I'll point out to you here in a moment. Before I move on to that, I wanted to also point out that we've changed the name from just summary to activity summary. The reason is that we've also added a new category called product summary. Product summary, if I click on this link here, this will now take me to a screen that will show me all products or premiums that have ever been shipped to this particular partner or donor. In this case here, you'll notice that there are no products that have ever been sent to this particular donor, but if there were, they would all be listed here. What's nice about this is I can then also filter that down by product SKU or by product category, and I can also say by what type of transaction it was. So if it's just a premium and it was associated to a particular acknowledgement, maybe I want to filter those, or maybe I just want to look at product orders, or I want to look at all products that have ever been received by this particular donor. If I go into the activity summary, I'll point out that we've added 2 new fields to the activity summary itself. Largest response in the last 12 months and number of responses received. So as you can see, we're continually adding on some additional statistical information about any given donor record, specifically from the activity summary dialog. One change that I want to point out is related to our usage of the word partner. As you probably know, you have the option to let us know if you'd like that word partner redefined as something else. So for example, if you want to call it donor, as we have in this particular demo database, you can do that. So anywhere partner was previously shown, it would now say donor. the query engine itself was not very consistent with that in terms of always doing that. Sometimes you might see constituent ID, you might still see partner ID, and so on. Just want to point out that we've done a thorough examination of the query engine to make sure that anywhere the word partner or constituent and other things, they're all standardized to the word that you would like us to present, which in this case is donor. So if you notice here, I've got a category called donors as opposed to partners, and anywhere I'm referencing one of the donor fields, that'll be displayed correctly as well. So donor ID, donor origin date, and so on. We've added an enhancement to the inventory reorder level notifications that will allow you to be notified via email should any of your inventory product items reach a certain reorder point. If I go into inventory and I find a particular product that I'd like to work with, I simply click Edit Product, and you'll notice right here we have a field called Reorder At. So in this case here, what we're saying is that we want to know that whenever this particular inventory level for this particular t-shirt reaches 1,025, we want to get notified so we can place a new order to get additional inventory back in stock. So again, you just simply specify the reorder point that you want to be notified. And to actually have this turned on, you simply need to send an email to support@mybernard.com, and we'll activate that feature for you. And in addition to just activating it, we also need to know what email addresses you would like that notification to be sent. So we do that so that it doesn't have to just be yourself, the user, editing this particular record, but you can also tell us, give us a list of folks within the organization that should receive that notification as well. We've added the ability to allow a user to specify additional cost elements now at the segment level. Previously, costs could only be associated at what I refer to as the global appeal level, and you could also have cost at the package level. We've now enhanced the system so that for any given segment, you can say a particular segment has a particular cost. Now, before you could also specify a cost on just a segment, but we wanted to give you an additional detail about that cost. So for example, if I click on a particular segment within a given appeal pool, you notice under the segment cost, which was there before, you now have a new option that says details. If I click details, that's going to expand a grid to where you can have multiple costs for that given segment specified. So for example, if I wanted to add a new cost on this segment, I simply say add cost, and now I can say, ABC vendor. You can put an address and a phone, and then you can put in a quantity, just as you could before. But this allows you to break it down. So maybe ABC vendor was for printing, and then maybe you also want to add postage for this particular segment as well. So you could simply just do that. And now what will happen is that you'll get a breakdown of those various cost elements. So it allows you to be a little bit more granular as it relates to cost and also from a reporting perspective. We've added an enhancement to custom data fields that allows you to now set a default value on any given field. What this allows you to do or ensures that it's not the user's responsibility to ensure that a particular field gets set. The system will automatically add the value to a particular custom field as specified here in the setup. So from administration, and not every user has rights to be in administration, if you go to custom data fields and you edit a current one, you'll notice a new field here now called default value. So in this case here, I created a new custom field called donor status, and for every new record or imported record that comes in, I want to make sure that by default they always get the value of active. So if I save off that custom field and then I go to donors and then click new donor, and we'll just enter in a new donor record. We'll just put in some bogus information to test, and then we'll do and if I go ahead and save this record, you'll notice that if I look at the custom fields now, that it automatically got a value of active for donor status. I didn't have to set it in any way, we just automatically added the value of active. Now it's important to note that if an operator when they're creating that record, actually puts in a value for donor status. So for example, if I put in donor status here and I say non-active, for example, and I click save, then that value is going to be preserved as opposed to the default value overriding what the operator specified. I should also point out, just to be clear, that the default values on custom data fields are only set for new partner records that are created or on newly imported names that come into the system. So in other words, we won't go out and if you automatically create a default value on an existing custom field and there's existing partners out there, we won't automatically populate that field. If that's something that you need it done, certainly support can help with that. So contact us at support@mybernard.com and we could do that. But it's important to note that if you go add that default value now, that only applies to new partner records or imported partner records. We've added new functionality to appeal segmentation that allows you to build predefined ask arrays. The ask arrays are used when doing an appeal pull, and specifically you can create an ask array and then you can specify specific ask arrays on given segments. So in order to get to the ask array section, simply pull down appeals and click on ask arrays. Then you're going to be presented with a list of pre-existing or predefined ask arrays, or where you can build a new ask array. If I click edit on this existing ask array, you'll see the various attributes. So you'll be able to specify a name, a description, what you want to base the ask array on in terms of the value. So it can be based on average gift, largest gift, sum of gift value, and so on. You've got some various formatting options, and then you define what your ask array ranges are. So this is a very simplistic ask array to where I've just said I've got two different arrays, $0 to $10 and $10 plus. So if I click edit, what this says is that anybody that has a sum of activity value from $0 to $10, these are the three different ask amounts that'll be printed out whenever you do your export on the appeal pool. Anybody that has $10 and a penny plus, if I click edit on that, you'll notice I've got a different set of ask arrays, $50, $75, and $100. You have some various options that you can do in terms of how this ask amount is calculated. It can be multiplied based on what the ask array is based on. So a couple different options there for building the ask array and how you want the amount to be specified. So multiply, fixed, multiply, or add. So again, once the ask arrays have been built, if you go do an appeal pull, you can now specify and say, at the global level of the appeal pull, I want to use this particular ask array, or you can pick and choose within the appeal itself which segments get which particular ask array. So very flexible. Previously, we had ask array support. However, that would have to be defined on the back end for you as more of a custom program job that we did for you. Now this is something that you have full control over yourself and can build straight through the interface. If you'd like to use this functionality, we ask that you contact support@mybernard.com and they will turn that particular functionality on for you. It is not on for all clients by default, but certainly available if you'd like to use it. A new feature has been added to appeal pulls or pulls that have already been done that allows you to upload what I refer to as a net pull file. So for example, you notice I've got these two different finalized pulls. Let's say for example you have a list or an appeal pull that you do and you send this list out to an outside vendor, and that vendor does some whittling down of what names actually should be mailed, and then what they'll do in turn is then provide you back a mail file that'll say these are the people that are actually in the mailing. So what you can do now under available actions on a previous pull, if I hover over the arrow, you'll see a new option here called upload adjustment. What upload adjustment does is this will allow you to upload a file of basically just IDs that allow you to then adjust the pull. So literally it will pull people out of the pull that were previously done whenever you did the original select. We've added a new conditional rule for acknowledgement letters that is called activity amount versus value. What this does is this basically allows you to use the activity amount versus value, and basically what it does, it allows a transaction value to be compared against a standard Bernard aggregate value, such as average gift, sum of gift, and so on. So for example, if I select for this particular transaction, I want this acknowledgement letter to be sent if the activity amount, meaning the transaction amount, is one of your operators, let's say, is greater than, say, average gift value, or again, any of the different Bernard aggregate fields that we provide. In addition, what you can do is you can also have a custom query field. So let's say that you have highest previous contribution calculation, things like that. Different query fields can also be specified so you can compare the transaction value against those custom query fields as well. In addition to conditional acknowledgments, a great new enhancement is you can now add premiums or products to acknowledgement letters. So for example, as opposed to before you had to just specify it on the package of a particular acknowledgement, now you can say for this particular acknowledgement letter, if it goes out, I also want them to get a different premium for that. So for example, if I want them to get this particular kids book, I can just specify the kids book and say select, and then that'll bring it right into the list to say that not only are going to get this letter if they qualify based on the conditions, but to also get this particular product in addition to the letter. While we're on acknowledgement letters, I want to also point out something that's very important, and that is that the acknowledgement export file layout has changed slightly. Basically, there's been 2 new fields added to the acknowledgement file that come right after the check digit column, and those 2 columns are premium products and batch number. Premium products are, as I just described, how you can now add premiums to acknowledgement letters. So this column will indicate, it'll be a common delimited list of all the products that have been associated. So in this case here, there's a quantity of 1 of the SKU TNG. And this particular transaction was in batch 1180. The number of fields that you have following these 2 columns will remain the same, just dependent on what specific acknowledgement outputs that we've defined for you, which are custom for every client. In addition, they won't necessarily be in columns BI and BJ, because prior to that, to the fields the fields prior, you also have appeal groupings, and so the number of actual columns you have can vary client to client just based on what's been set up. We've enhanced some of the filtering options that are now available under fulfillment, and then if you go to pending responses or printed letters. Right now, in addition to just be able to specify a particular appeal ID or appeal name, we can also specify now a grouping or a grouping option. The same is true for printed letters. So now you'll see some additional filtering options there as well, specifically related to appeal groupings. We've made a minor change to one of the columns, specifically on hand, from the pending order section. So from fulfillment pending orders, the column on hand, this now reflects the on hand amount for a kit that has the lowest amount of items on hand for any of the components in the kit. So for example, if you have a kit and there's 3 items in it, one has 10 inventory items on hand, one has 5, and the other one has 1, the on hand amount will reflect 1, because you can't prepare an order if there's not sufficient quantity for all components that are in the kit. So this gives you an idea that, if there's a particular kit that you need to go check inventory on, it's a good indicator of which products are low. The final thing I want to note as it relates to the Bernard enhancements is that we have fixed the calendar function for users that are using Internet Explorer 10. There was an issue with this particular drop-down, but now this should work correctly for all users of Internet Explorer, and in particular the follow-up dialog. I want to make a couple quick comments on 2 changes and a new enhancement to the report section of Bernard. One is related to the behavior in terms of how delivery of reports are run. Typically, as you know, whenever you run a report, most of the reports are delivered to you in real time. We do our best to ensure the highest performance of any of those reports that come out, but some reports, due to the sophistication and the calculations that are going in those reports, can take a little bit of time to run. So what we've done is that we now have a timer set to where that if any report is taken longer than a minute to be returned to you, will notify you in a pop-up window and tell you that, hey, this report's taken a little longer, and once it completes, it'll be emailed to you instead of you having to sit and wait for it on the screen. So a bit of a time saver, so you don't have to sit and wait for it. It'll be delivered straight to your inbox. An enhancement to the report section I'm pretty excited about is this new section called recent reports. Typically what we have found is that a lot of clients or users, they have their standard set of reports. So rather than having to scroll through the 200 plus reports that we have in the system, now you can simply come into reports and you see this new category, the very first one in the list, called recent reports. If I click that drop down, that's going to show all the recent reports that I as a user have run in the system. So quite the time saver just to be able to quickly say, hey, there's my appeal performance analysis report, and I can quickly jump to it, enter my criteria, and I'm on my way. Additionally, we've made a change to the appeal category for reports. We've gotten to the point where there's so many reports based on appeals and different analytical reports that we wanted to break that down into a subcategory to make them basically more manageable and easier to find what you're looking for. So under appeal, you'll notice there's now a category for administrative, there's a category for appeal performance, there's a category for lifetime value, category for responses, and a category for revenue. So it still has the same reports that you had before under the single category of appeal. We've simply broke it down into subcategories for you to make it much easier to find. Quick note on one of the changes to one of the appeal reports. The appeal report appeal partner responses, which is the report number A1026, now has the ability to set an optional start and end date, which allow you to limit the amount of data that's contained in that report. We've created a new report under batch called Daily Deposit Details. This is a very good report because what it'll allow you to do if you're using the Bernard Day closing as it relates to batches, it'll allow you to get a very detailed report based on number of batches, the batches as they match up to specific deposits that have been made. So without having to go back to the day closing screen, this report now will allow you to set a start and an end date and be able to run it to be able to see exactly which batches are matching against which deposits by date range in various batch categories. We've made a change to one of the partner reports called New Name Origin Code Analysis, which is report number P1002. You now also have sorting options here available as well. So now you can sort the report by origin code, origin gift description, or total gift value. Finally, I want to point out we've also made a change to the state of the database report, which is under the management report category. The percent difference column has been renamed to previous year and reflects the correct calculation of which is current year minus previous year divided by previous year. So that was a correction on that particular report, and I know some of our users will be happy to know that that's been corrected in this release. I'm going to jump back over to the web app for just a moment as I want to point out a new feature that's been added that you will use in RapidEntry. This next section of the webinar I want to talk about RapidEntry enhancements, but before I do that I want to point this one out and then we'll reference that back over on the transaction side. We've added a new option to where you can specify a particular appeal as just what I'll refer to as a white mail appeal. What that means is that you can have a particular appeal, and we call this one here just use last mailed appeal. There's a new option called use last mailed. What that means is that if the operator selects this particular appeal as the appeal to allocate the transaction amount to, what Bernard will do whenever you save and close that batch is we'll actually go out and try to find out which was the last appeal they were mailed. If we find one, we'll automatically associate that transaction to that last mailed appeal. However, if we cannot find an appeal that they were last mailed to, maybe they were never mailed, we'll automatically attribute the revenue or that transaction to this particular appeal that you see here. So to show that in RapidEntry, if I pull up a transaction now, you'll see right here, this is your normal list of different appeals that you can select from. But at the very top now, I've got that one we just looked at called Use Last Mailed Appeal. There's nothing about the naming convention that I have here that specifies that. It's simply that attribute on the appeal that says Use Last Mailed So I could have multiple white mail appeals, if you will, or specified, and those will all roll up to the top, and it's whatever the operator selects. And as long as it has that use last mailed attribute checked, then that's the behavior that'll be had. So we'll, if you select that particular appeal, we'll see if they were mailed some other appeal previously. If they were, again, that's the transaction, or where the transaction will be allocated to. Otherwise, it'll go to the particular appeal that's selected here. We've added a couple new hotkeys to Rapid Entry. One that's very useful is that if you have a batch that you're keying and there's the same donor that's coming through, and you don't want to rekey that the donor's ID multiple times. If I have a donor ID that I pulled up here, in this case 7000966, if I update that transaction or add it, I can immediately just hit Control-I, and that'll immediately repopulate the donor information for the next transaction that I want to enter. So again, all I do is hit Control-I, I hit the payment amount, select their segment, and click Add, and then boom, it automatically added that transaction to that same person. Just simply a time saver to basically copy over the last donor ID that you entered. Another new hotkey that's been added is Control-P. What Control-P does, if I hit that, this is going to pop up a dialog showing you all products and or premiums that have ever been sent to this particular donor. So again, Control-P will simply, as we demonstrated earlier in the webinar, show you all the products that this donor has ever received. In this case here, has never been any, but as demoed earlier, you can search and filter by SKU, product category, and what type of transaction it was. Staying with Rapid Entry, we've added a new field to the batch header of any given batch. It's called deposit number. So this is not a required field, but if you want to keep track of deposits and you have some numbering scheme, then you can simply enter in what the batch number is for a given batch, and then save and close it off. Finally, I want to point out a change that we've made is previously when new versions of Rapid Entry have come out and installed onto the user's desktop, the user would have to reset all of their settings in terms of the panels they want to show by going to View and selecting their options. Now those settings are going to be preserved from release to release, so you won't have the annoyance of having to reset those settings every time. Again, they'll be preserved on future updates. This concludes the webinar for the release for August 15, 2013. Should you have any questions, please contact support at mybernard.com or via the phone at 303-629-2727, option 1, or on the web at support.mybernard.com. Thank you.